So, what do you do when you're starting with nothing? When you're facing this huge problem, but you have like zero resources to solve it? Well, today, we're going to dig into a powerful ancient story that completely flips that idea on its head. It shows us how real abundance can actually spring from the most unlikely places.
It's a huge question, right? It almost feels like it can't be true. How can you possibly create more from less? Whether we're talking about our jobs, a personal project, or just our bank accounts, we have all been at that starting line, staring up at a mountain with what feels like just a handful of dust to build with. Believe it or not, the answer, or at least a totally new way of thinking about it, comes from a story that's thousands of years old. It's a story about a widow, a prophet, and one very small jar of oil. Okay, so our story kicks off with a woman in a moment of just absolute crisis. I mean, her situation is about as bleak as it gets. Her husband's gone, she's drowning in debt, and she's about to lose the only thing that matters to her. I mean, just listen to the raw desperation in those words. You have to understand, this is about way more than money. For a widow back then, her sons were everything. Her future, her security, her entire world. And now there's a creditor literally at the door, about to take them as payment. The stakes just could not be any higher. Let's just break this down. This is a snapshot of total scarcity. She's got this crushing debt she can't possibly pay. She has no way to make a living, and the consequence is just unimaginable, her kids being sold into slavery. She's not just at rock bottom, she's looking at a future with literally nothing left. So, in her despair, she cries out to the prophet Elisha for help. But he doesn't just offer her some money or a quick, easy fix. Nope. Instead, he asks her a very simple question. A question that's designed to completely reframe her reality. Now, notice this immediate shift in focus. It's so important. She is completely consumed by what she lacks, the money, the security, a way out. But the prophet pivots her attention. He forces her to look at the one thing she's been overlooking, what she already has. It's a huge change in perspective, from a mindset of lack to a mindset of inventory. And check out her first response. It's so human. Nothing. That's just how deep her feeling of scarcity runs. She doesn't even see the thing she owns as a resource. It's a total afterthought. Except, she adds, a small jar of oil. A seemingly insignificant, basically worthless item. But in that one tiny little exception, that's the seed of her entire miracle. And this perfectly illustrates what we can call the pivot principle. It's this idea that your next step, your source of abundance, is almost never found by focusing on what's missing. It's found when you take a really clear-eyed inventory of what you already have, no matter how small or insignificant it seems. So with this new starting point, this one small jar of oil, the prophet gives her a very specific and honestly a kind of strange set of instructions. And this part's key. This isn't about just sitting around and waiting. It's about taking action based on the one tiny asset she was able to identify. So the prophet's plan is basically a blueprint for a miracle. First, he says, go out and engage your community, gather some resources, in this case, empty jars. Second, and I love this part, prepare for success. Think bigger than your current reality. He says, don't ask for just a few. And finally, you have to act with intention and maybe a little faith. Shut the door and start pouring what you have. And the result is just astonishing. She starts to pour, and the oil, it just doesn't stop. It keeps on flowing until every single jar she borrowed from her neighbors is completely full. She started with this tiny symbol of scarcity and ended up with this overwhelming symbol of abundance. Now she has something valuable to sell, pay off her debts, and take care of her family. I mean, it's an incredible story of a miracle, right? But its real power, its real magic, isn't how it applies to us today. How does this ancient lesson become a practical tool for our lives? That's the real question we need to ask. Let's be real, the lesson isn't about magic oil. It's about a mindset. It's a whole strategic approach to solving problems that doesn't start with a list of what's missing, but with an honest inventory of what's already there. So the lesson is pretty clear. Your solution, your next big breakthrough, almost always starts with something you already have. We have to learn not to dismiss our own small jar of oil. That one unique skill you have, that little bit of code you wrote for a side project, that one great relationship you have with a client. The potential could be absolutely massive. And that feeling of having nothing, so often that's just a perspective, it's not the reality. But just knowing this isn't enough. Abundance demands action. You have to be willing to go out and collect the jars and then start pouring. And that really brings us to the most important question of all, the one you have to answer. As you look at the challenges in your own life, your own career, whatever it is, what is that small, seemingly insignificant asset you already possess? What's the skill, the idea, the connection that you've been brushing off as nothing that might just be the seed of your very own miracle?